Welcome, everybody, to my latest 2022 NFL mock draft. Hope you guys all enjoy this. I'm going to do things a little differently. In the past, I've always just you've got to stare at my ugly mug. I put a few pictures up, reveal the picks here and there. For this one, I'm going to utilize a great website out there, NFL Mock Draft Database. I know there's a lot of draft simulators out there. Seems like everybody has one these days. Mock Draft Database, I think, is the best one out there. Not only are you able to make your mock draft here, simulate one, pick a team, do an individual team one, whatever it may be, but they also have a lot of tools out there that if you're an NFL draft fan or an analyst or someone, whatever it may be, checking out their consensus mock drafts, their consensus big boards, kind of seeing where players are being mocked. And then they have a lot of people's mock drafts in their database. So shout out to Mock Draft Database. They do a great job. And so this is my favorite place to go. So make sure you check it out if you haven't already done so. Now that being said, let's get into the mock. I don't want to waste too much time. I don't want to sit here for 2 hours doing this mock draft. I recently posted one on thehuddlereport.com. But I kind of wanted to talk through all my picks here. And so we start off with the Jacksonville Jaguars. They don't need a quarterback. We know that. They got Trevor Lawrence, whoever their head coach is going to be. They got that number one overall pick. And they need to just get talent. They need to build up that roster. And so with that number one overall pick, they're going to take the best player. Now, Kayvon Thibodeaux is my number one rated player in this class. I think he's the best player, the best pass rusher. That being said, it looks like the top pick is going to be Aiden Hutchinson. Now, if you remember, when I do my mock drafts, I don't do them based off of what I think the team should do. I do it what I think. It's not what I see, it's what I hear. And at this point, Aiden Hutchinson's my second-rated player, so it's not like I think it's a big reach. But Aiden Hutchinson's played his best in the big games. He's got bigger size. He's explosive. You paired him up with Josh Allen on the other side. You add in Kayvon Chaisson as a third pass rusher, and now the Jaguars, having three good pass rushers potentially, could really cover up a lot of weaknesses that they have in the back end of their defense. Now it leaves Detroit at number 2. Now Detroit, I think, would love to get Aiden Hutchinson. He, to me, screams a Dan Campbell type player. And then it benefits that he's a Michigan guy. But in this case, he's not there. I think if Aiden Hutchinson's there at number 2, slam dunk, they're taking him. But that being said, I think they go to Oregon and get their second straight Duck. Last year was Penei Sewell, who they really loved. I think Kayvon Thibodeaux is a guy that would really fit them as well, too. You know, he's... You know, I talk about how good of a fit Hutchinson would be in that defense. Thibodeau's going to be just as good. An explosive, athletic wrecker of a machine off the edge would really give Aaron Glenn and that defense a lot of star power that they desperately need. Now, if we go to the Texans can go a lot of different ways. I've thought about going offensive line here. I've thought about going a couple different directions. Could they go quarterback? I don't think so. Just because I don't think the quarterbacks right here are worth that. And so I think at number 3, they go out and they get Derek Stingley. Derek Stingley is one of the best players in this class. I know some people are starting to put Ahmed Sauce Gardner ahead of him. I'm not ready to do that. Stingley hasn't had the year, didn't play much the last couple of years, but he's an ultra talent. When he was on that team that won the national championship, he was the best player on their defense as a freshman. And that's saying a lot about him. I think he's a true shutdown corner, one of the best cornerbacks we've had in several years. And so the Texans, they just need talent. They need talent, and they should literally just go best player available. Doesn't matter what position is, best player on their board, because that roster is pretty devoid of talent. All right, so the Jets. The Jets are interesting because they're they're still rebuilding. They got their quarterback of the future in Zach Wilson, they're hoping, and so they just want to continue to build up. And one of the things that Joe Douglas has done the last few years is build up that offensive line. They drafted Mekhi Becton a couple years ago. last year with their second first-round pick. They took Elijah Vera Tucker. I don't think they're done on the offensive line. Joe Douglas comes from Philadelphia. We've seen with Howie Roseman and them, they want to build up their offensive line. And that's why I think they take Evan Neal here. And I think they put Evan Neal in at right tackle, a position that he's played. And now, Zach Wilson, you've got Mekhi Becton on the left side, Evan Neal at right tackle. You've got Elijah Vera Tucker inside at left guard, and they're cooking. That offensive line is going to, help that run game, take a little bit of pressure off of Zach Wilson, but then more or less just give him time. And Zach Wilson is a guy that needs some time in the pocket, and I think adding Evan Neal, a guy that has played 3 positions, so maybe you put him in a guard initially and then kick him out to tackle. Maybe you leave him at right tackle. Maybe Mekhi Becton, who has been hurt this year, maybe he's not healthy, and you can have Evan Neal at left tackle. So I think that gives him some flexibility, but also gives him that guy that, once again, hey, you can put on either side. All right, now the New York Giants. And New York Giants were always pretty predictable. They've always kind of been that way. Even when Jerry Reese was their general manager, David Gettleman this past year. I don't know who their general manager is going to be. I don't know who their head coach is going to be. But one thing I do know is they need to improve that offensive line. The offensive line has been a disaster lately. They drafted Andrew Thomas at pick 4 a few years ago. They've used second-round picks on guys. They just need to continue to build up that offensive line. And that's why I think Ikem Ekwonu, Icky, would be a great fit for them here at 5. I think Evan Neal is going to be the first offensive lineman taken in this draft. I think Ikem Ekwonu is the best offensive lineman in the draft. I don't know if he's going to play tackle or he's going to play guard, but I think wherever he plays, he's going to be solid. I get a lot of Zach Martin feels when I think and watch Ikem Ekwonu. Hey, and it's easy to say, oh, tackle kicking in the guard, that's Zach Martin for you. It's just the way he plays. He's physical, he's powerful, so he's got that, he looks like an offensive, he plays like a nasty offensive guard, but he still has the length, and he still has the athleticism of an offensive tackle. So I think for the Giants, you take him, and then you just find the best place for him. Whether that's at left guard, replacing Will Hernandez, maybe that's at right tackle, maybe that's at right guard. Wherever it may be, you've got a butt kicker in there that you can add to that offensive line to pair with Andrew Thomas, to pair with some of the younger guys that they have. And I think that gives whoever is the quarterback some time. But, hey, you've got Saquon Barkley. You got to get him going. And he didn't have much room to run last year, so you got to beef up that offensive line. All right, that leaves us to the Carolina Panthers at 6. Now, when I look at this and what the Panthers are going to do, you have to start with quarterback. And I don't think the quarterbacks in this class, there's not a surefire guy. There's no Trevor Lawrence. Heck, I think the top quarterbacks in this class, they'd be the 6th quarterback taken in last year's draft. They'd be behind Trevor Lawrence. They'd be behind Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, and Mac Jones. But we see quarterbacks always go early. Hey, we saw Daniel Jones go 6th overall. We've seen Dwayne Haskins go in the top 20. We've seen players like that happen. And when you have a need for quarterback, like the Panthers are, and they're kind of a little desperate, they tend to reach hoping they can get that guy. And that's what I think they do here with Kenny Pickett. I think Kenny Pickett's going to be the first quarterback taken in this draft. I like Kenny Pickett a lot. I probably think he's more of a second-round guy. But that being said, the Panthers, I think, are desperate. They need a quarterback. Sam Darnold hasn't panned out. They had to go back and get Cam Newton. Who's going to be out there in free agency? I don't think they're going to be able to trade for Deshaun Watson. I don't think they're going to be able to go out and get anybody. So in that case, you have to reach here and hope that Kenny Pickett can be that distributor. They want to run the ball. Matt Rule wants to run the ball, but he needs someone to distribute. And they've got some talent. They got some weapons. Can Kenny Pickett be that guy to distribute the ball? All right, here at pick 7, the New York Giants. This is the Chicago Bears pick. And they need some help. I have them taking an offensive lineman at 5. I wouldn't be shocked if they took another offensive line here. That's not who I have them taking, but it wouldn't shock me. Who I have them going is going with the edge. And I have them going with David Ojabo from Michigan. So this is the second Michigan pass rusher to go in the top 7, but he's a stud. And there's a lot of misconception out there that he's this raw athletic prospect. He's a lot more refined than I think a lot of people will see. Go watch him against Georgia and the work that he did. He may not have gotten home a few times, but his pass rushing moves, the way he attacks the offensive tackles, he's a lot more refined than we're giving him credit for. And the Giants, they don't have that elite pass rusher. They got talent. Azeez Ojulari played well last year, but in past Giants defenses, they didn't put an emphasis on edge rushers. And so they have very little to work with. And so that's why I think a guy like Ojabo to go with Ojulari could give them, their defense, some much needed rush off the edge to go with Leonard Williams, to go with their guys inside, Dexter Lawrence, and make that defense, who regressed last year, a lot better. All right, pick 8, we have the Atlanta Falcons. And the Atlanta Falcons are a team that I think have a lot of talent. They have some talent, but they're just weak in a lot of areas. And I think one of those biggest areas that they're weak in is the pass rush. They haven't had an elite pass rusher since when? I don't even know. And so they need to go out and get somebody. And there's a guy that I'm a lot higher on than most people. I know George Karlaftis is available there. He's a possibility. But the guy I like better, if we go to edge, I find him, is Trayvon Walker. I know he's listed here as the D line, but to me, I think he's an edge guy. Trayvon Walker from Georgia. If you watch any of Georgia's games, number 44 out there, I think he's one of the most untalked about and under the radar players in this draft class. And here's a guy that just wreaks havoc off the edge. He can kind of line up in the edge. They can kind of slide him in. They've got so much talent on that Georgia front 7 that I think he kind of gets lost in the shuffle. But every time you watch Georgia, he's the one going out there and making plays. And I think Atlanta, in their defense, I think he can be moved around once again. And I think he's a perfect fit for what they want to do and give them a pass rusher that they desperately need. All right, Denver. Here's another team, edge rusher. They traded away Von Miller. They got Bradley Chubb, but they need more help. Once again, who's going to be their head coach? I don't know. But what we do know is every team, no matter what scheme you run, you need pass rushers. And this is where I have George Karlaftis going from Purdue, another guy that is a talented player. It took me a little bit of time to warm up on him. I know a lot of people, I've seen him go top 5 in mock drafts before. I didn't quite see it. So I've dove into a lot of his tape, probably more tape than any other player in this class. And the more tape that I watched, the more I appreciated his talent. He kind of looks like a short, squatty guy, even though he's not short by any stretch of the means. But he's got good quickness. He's got the bend. He's not this ultra speed rusher off the edge, but he's got enough short area burst that I think he can make it. When he played at Purdue, he played in a 2-point stance quite a bit. So if Denver continues to run a 3-4, I think he can continue to play well with that. I think you can kind of move him around a little bit as well. But you pair him up with Bradley Chubb, and this is a team that doesn't have a lot of weaknesses. Their biggest weakness was their quarterback. And so if they can get that quarterback situation fixed, and maybe it's trading away this pick to the Vikings for Kirk Cousins, they can be really good. And so if they don't end up trading away this pick for Kirk Cousins, maybe they don't have to give up a first-round pick for him. But I think they just can continue to go best player. They need another edge rusher, especially, like I said, with Von Miller being traded away. And so that's why I have them going with Karlaftis here. All right, 10, the Jets. Their second first-round pick. I had them going Evan Neal at the beginning. Now let's have them go on the opposite. I think pass rusher could have been a possibility, but we just had how many go off before? We had Karlaftis, Walker, Ojabo, Thibodeau, Hutchison. I'm not really a big fan of some of the other guys at this spot. Drake Jackson, not a fan of him. Egnogberry from South Carolina, Najee Sanders, Jermaine Johnson. Those guys aren't top 10 players. So they have to go in a different direction. And I think right here, what they go out and they do is they get a safety. And I know they got Marcus May, but go out and get Kyle Hamilton. Okay? And Robert Saleh's defense, this Seattle-style cover 3, that safety position is important. And I think Kyle Hamilton's a guy that kind of do it all. You can have him be your post safety and play a single high over the top. You can put him at strong safety and kind of match him up with tight ends, coming down and help in the run game, play underneath defense. He can kind of do it all. And so the Jets, without a pass rusher available here and having Kyle Hamilton available. So not only is there not a pass rusher here, but Kyle Hamilton, in my opinion, is one of the top players in this draft. I think he's a top 5 player in this draft, but safeties tend to slide a little bit. We saw Derwin James, considered one of the top 5 players in the draft, fall down into the 20s. So I think Kyle Hamilton is a guy that could slide a little bit just because of the nature of the position, but the Jets are a team that has a need there, utilizes that position pretty heavily in their defense, and so I think they would love to add Kyle Hamilton here. All right, Washington at 11. Okay, here's a position that we almost are ready to mock quarterback right away. Ryan Fitzpatrick was supposed to be their quarterback. He got hurt. They brought in Tyler Heineke. Played okay, but he's not a starting NFL quarterback. And so with Washington kind of being where they're at, being the 11th pick right here, I think they need to make a move. And maybe they're that team that takes Kenny Pickett first. Maybe the Panthers pass on him. And they get him here. But even if Kenny Pickett does go ahead of him, I think they still look hard at a quarterback. And maybe they reach for one and they go for a need over best player available. But I think in this situation, I have them taking Matt Corral from from Mississippi. And I think here's a guy who wouldn't shock me if he fall. I think sometimes us NFL draft analysts and draft fans and draft nicks, whatever you want to call us, we like Matt Corral better than the NFL. Some of the interviews and some of the connected draft analysts out there, they're a little bit down on him. And I think that kind of indicates maybe that the NFL's a little bit down on him. I've heard that before. So, but I think he's a talented player. And I think he's clearly the second best quarterback in this class. And I think with Kenny Pickett being already gone, Corral would be that option. And I think his playing style fits well with what Ron Rivera wants. The guy that was willing to take a few chances, the guy that can play loose. And I think him coming into Washington, pairing him up with Antonio Gibson at running back, Terry McLaurin at receiver, some of the Logan Thomas at tight end, they've got some weapons. They just need a quarterback that can make some of those plays for them. And that's why I like Corral here. All right, the Vikings at 12. Now, this will be an interesting pick. Once again, another organization that can go in a completely different way. Rick Spielman's gone. Mike Zimmer's gone. Who are they going to hire as their head coach? Who's going to be their general manager? And before it was like, hey, this is cornerback all day long. Mike Zimmer, Rick Spielman, love drafting cornerbacks in the first round. Trey Waynes, Jeff Gladney, Mike Hughes. They've done this on a yearly basis. So why not we do it again? Let's give him Ahmed Sauce Gardner. And I had a Vikings fan tell me, you do realize Rick Smith and Mike Zimmer are gone. And I do. And I alluded to that. But, like I said at the beginning, there's a lot of people out here that are starting to put Ahmed Sauce Gardner ahead of Derek Stingley. So the fact that he's still sitting there at 12, the value's high. And then you look at the Vikings, even though they've invested all those resources into a cornerback, what do they have to show for it? Trey Waynes is gone. He wasn't their guy. Xavier Rhodes is long gone. Jeff Gladney is gone. Mike Hughes is gone. They had to bring in Patrick Peterson last year. They had to bring in Mackenzie Alexander. Or no, Mackenzie Alexander's gone too. But they had to bring in these guys. And they still don't have much to show. And so cornerback is a big need for them. And I think because it is a need, and a guy like Ahmed Gardner is available, makes way too much sense for me just to pass it up. All right. Pick 13. Cleveland Browns. Another team that looked like they're going to make it back to the playoffs for a second year. I know injuries really hurt Baker Mayfield. But one of the positions that was, I think, was once maybe considered a strength is kind of a little bit of a weakness, and that's receiver. And I'm going to have them take the first receiver in this draft, and no, it's not Garrett Wilson or Jameson Williams. I'm going to have them take Treylon Burks. And Treylon Burks is a guy, in my opinion, who has the makings for the best receiver in this class. I don't have him as my number one receiver, but I look at him. He has size, he's got speed, he can be physical, he has it all. And this team needs a number one receiver. Odell Beckham Jr., obviously he's a Los Angeles Ram now. They've got Jarvis Landry, he's more of a complimentary piece. And then what do you have after that? Donovan Peoples-Jones? Rashad Higgins? They need a number one guy. Give Baker Mayfield a number one receiver. And that's what I think Treylon Burks is he can complement Jarvis Landry. He can complement some of those guys and give Mayfield a big target that he can throw the ball up to, a guy that he can use to push down the field. And give this, they're a run-first team. But if we saw anything we saw out of Kevin Stefanski when he was with the Vikings, and even so far with the Browns, is he wants to run a lot of play action. So they've got Nick Chubb, they've got Kareem Hunt, they've got a stud offensive line, and they're going to run the ball. But now you have play action to a big, fast receiver on the outside. I think it's a perfect fit. 14, the Baltimore Ravens. How often has the Baltimore Ravens been picking in the top 15? Not very often. And so I think this is an opportunity for them to go out and get a player that can fall into their laps. There's a lot of really good players available here. But the guy I think they're going to go to is shoring up that offensive line. Kenyon Green from Texas A&M. He's a guy that's played guard. He's a guy that played tackle this past year. They need some help in rebuilding up that offensive line. And so a guy like Kenyon Green could come in. He can play left guard. Maybe he eventually becomes the right guard. Maybe he's a guy that doesn't start initially, but ends up taking over. And they like to invest in their offensive line. They're like the Eagles. A lot of the Eagles guys came from the Ravens per se, or vice versa. But they need to build up that offensive line, and so a guy like Kenyon Green, who potentially could push towards that top, guards don't usually go in the first, in the top 10, but he's a guy that a lot of people think is a top 10 talent, and so to get him there, build up that offensive line, he's a mean, nasty run blocker as well, that'll help Lamar Jackson out, once again, just makes a lot of sense. All right, now the Eagles have back-to-back picks here. So they have, once again, a lot of options that they can go with. And because they have 3 first-round picks, they have another one coming up, 19. So they have 3 picks in the next 6. So with those picks, they can really kind of do a lot of different things. And I think the first thing they do is they get their center of the future in Tyler Linderbaum. Another guy that I think could very well go in the top 10 and no one will bat an eye. When's the last time a center has gone that high? But I don't think we've seen a center as good as Tyler Linderbaum in years. And I was a big fan of Garrett Bradbury and Ryan Kelly. So the Eagles with Howie Roseman, they love to build up their lines. Offensive line, defensive line. And he likes, when they took Andre Dillard a few years ago, they didn't have a need at left tackle. And the plan was to sit and develop Dillard behind Jason Peters and then bring him in. So I think the same thing goes here with Linderbaum and Kelsey, Jason Kelsey. Kelsey is still a talented center, but his career is on the downside. Bring in Linderbaum and add that depth to that offensive line. We've seen their guards get hurt the past couple years. Brandon Brooks, since they give him all that money, has barely played. You look at their left guards, have had some injuries. They drafted Landon Dickerson, I know, but I think Landon Dickerson, is going to settle more inside at guard. So you get a guy like Tyler Linderbaum, another athletic interior offensive lineman. This just screams Eagles pick to me. Now, since we went offense, we're going to go defense. And the guy that I think they go on defense is Nakobe Dean. Now, this is a little kind of out there because when's the last time the Eagles have drafted a linebacker this high? A couple years ago, they were playing Nate Gary, a converted safety at linebacker. But I think, once again, you've got 3 first-round picks. Nakobe Dean, I think, is a guy that can kind of do it all. And we're seeing linebackers nowadays in today's NFL with these wide receivers or these running backs that can double as receivers, tight ends. You need good athletic linebackers, and with 3 first-round picks, you can get a little luxury here. And you go out and you get Nakobe Dean, a guy that can run sideline to sideline, a guy that's physical at the point of attack. He can hit, run, and cover. And those are the 3 things you want out of linebacker, so it makes all the sense right here. All right, the Chargers. Team that should have made the playoffs, but they didn't. One of their biggest weaknesses out there is their run stuffing. And if you want to get better at stopping the run and you've got a first-round pick, why not go to Georgia and get their massive defensive tackle Jordan Davis? Now, I'm not as high on Jordan Davis as a lot of people. I've seen him in the top 10 of mock drafts. I've heard some people just go absolutely nuts for him. I don't think I've just never always been a big fan of those big bulking nose tackles. Vita Vea was probably my favorite of the group, but like Danny Shelton's, the Dexter Lawrence's, those type of guys, I've never been a big fan of. I want more pass rushers out of my guys, but they still go in the first round. We see, and this is kind of that sweet spot, that kind of the late teens. This is where we saw Dexter Lawrence go. This is where we've seen Danny Shelton go. Vita Vea went 11, whatever it may be. And I think Jordan Davis is a guy that can go into that middle of that Los Angeles defense and help lock it down. And then that allows their edge guys. That allows Kenneth Murray to kind of fly around. And I think that makes this defense, who was supposed to be really good, all that better. All right, let's look at the Saints. Now, it'd be very easy for me to go wide receiver here. Michael Thomas, who knows what his situation is? Outside of him, what do they have? We could possibly go quarterback here as well. But I think the Saints stick to their offensive line. And I think they go to Mississippi State and they get Charles Cross. And Charles Cross is a guy that I actually really wanted to mock a lot earlier. I'm a big fan of Charles Cross. He's got good length. He's got good size. He's light on his feet. He does well to mirror and match with the pass rushers. But I just didn't really see him. The Chargers aren't going to take a tackle. The Eagles aren't going to take a tackle. The Ravens could, but they'd probably take more of a right tackle. Browns aren't going to. Vikings just did last year, so the Washington just paid their left tackle. So where else are they going to go? And so I think he slides a little bit, maybe like Rashawn Slater did. Rashawn Slater, I thought could possibly go easily in the top 10, and he slipped all the way out. So I think Charles Cross is another guy. Terron Armstead, I've been a big fan of his since he came out of Arkansas Pine Bluff. He's played well. Injuries have just been an issue. So I think the Saints look to get their new left tackle of the future. Charles Cross is that guy. Pick 19. Now this is the Eagles' third first-round pick. Third pick in the top 20. How about a playoff team having 3 first-round picks? That's insane. And so what I think they do here is they continue to build up their defense. And I think they go cornerback. And I like Trent McDuffie a lot. I know Andrew Booth, another guy that a lot of people like. I put on the tape of Trent McDuffie and I fell in love. A guy that's maybe not the biggest, but he's explosive, he's quick, he's got good instincts, he's physical, and he's one of my favorite cornerbacks in this draft. And I think the Eagles continue to add pieces to their, they got Darius Slay, they've invested in the position before, just hasn't really panned out. So I think they go out and they get Trent McDuffie and kind of look to add to and hopefully find another lockdown corner. All right, we're into the 20s, down the home stretch. The Pittsburgh Steelers. Keep an eye out on quarterback here. That's a no-brainer. We have some quarterbacks available. Hey, we still have Sam Howell, who was once thought to be the number 1 overall pick in the draft. Malik Willis, who's got maybe the best talent in the class. But I don't have him going that way. And a player that I have him going to is I have him taken to DeMarvin Leal from Texas A&M. And here's a guy that I think fits perfectly with what they want to do. They want an athletic 3-4 defense. And DeMarvin Leal is a guy that can... he's played on the edge. He's played inside. He reminds me a lot of Stephon Tuitt, who they currently have on their team. That's had a lot of success with them. He's been injured. And I think Leal is a guy that can come in, add some depth to that defensive line, something that they've been lacking lately, and give them another piece to this defense. Move on to the New England Patriots. Here's another pick this is a pick that Patriots are always tough. Right? Who are they going to take? So it's just tough. And I know I'm going to make this pick, and it's going to be 100% wrong. I get it. But it just makes a lot of sense to me, and that's why I made this pick. And I'm going Garrett Wilson here. Garrett Wilson is a guy that I think a lot of NFL teams are probably going to see as the number 1 wide receiver in this class. He's available here at 21. I know the Patriots don't have a good track record at taking receivers in the first round. They don't. But they got Mac Jones right now. And he needs some more weapons. And they've been able to hide some of his weaknesses. They've been able to manage him and run the ball a lot and throw the ball to the tight ends and some of the receivers over the middle. What about adding an outside weapon? And I know their offense is inside out, but I think a guy like Garrett Wilson would give Mac Jones a lot of help. And I think the Patriots know for them to take that next step, they need to continue to develop Mac Jones. And that's why I think Garrett Wilson right here is a good pick. Now we have the Dolphins here at pick 22. And they can go a lot of different directions. Okay? They've got a new head coach coming in. This is the 49ers pick, by the way. And so I think what they do here is they've got Tua. They got him. They probably wish they had Justin Herbert, but they got Tua, and they need to help him. And they got him, the receiver last year, his former teammate, and why am I spacing on his name? Jalen Waddell, but they need to continue to help him out even more. And I think because of that, they go offensive tackle. And this may be a reach right now, maybe not later, but I think they take Jackson Kirkland. Here's a guy that I really like. And I know if you watch his game against Michigan and you see him play against Ojabo and Hutchinson, and he struggled, but a lot of people struggled with those guys. But he's a talented guy, and I think he's got good size, he's got good length. He's, once again, light on his feet. A lot of the same things I said about Charles Cross, but I'm a big Jackson Kirkland fan. And I know they took Austin Jackson a few years ago in the first round, but he hasn't panned out. They end up benching him. Go back to the well. You need to protect Tua. So go out and get another offensive tackle and give him more protection, because he's not a mobile run-around guy that a lot of people think he is. He's a pocket quarterback, and you need to protect him. Now, the Raiders here. What a story the Raiders have been. All the crap that they've had to go through. You know, John Gruden gets fired mid-season because the NFL went after him, maybe. I mean, he said what he said. Don't get me wrong. You can't say those things. Henry Ruggs was an idiot, drove drunk, killed somebody. Damon Arnett's been cut because of being an idiot. And so, despite all of that, they've gone out and they've won. And I'm really tempted here to put Jameson Williams. And I think if Jameson Williams is available here, and this is pre-ACL injury, I think I might have gone with it, because they want this speed element. And then when they lost Henry Ruggs, they went out and they got Deshaun Jackson. But they're going to have a new coaching staff, so who knows if that's still the possibility. And instead, I think they go corner and they take Andrew Booth, another guy that I think could go a lot higher than what I have him. But he's still available. And if Mike Mayock is still the general manager, he loves taking guys from winning programs. Alabama, Clemson, those type of schools. Booth, talented, value's great, area of need at cornerback. He's a Clemson guy. Makes a lot of sense. All right, moving on to pick 24, we have the Arizona Cardinals. Okay. One of the things that when I was trying to make this pick, I was thinking, who are their, we've looked what they've done lately. Isaiah Simmons a couple years ago. Zaven Collins last year. Big freak athletes. And so when I was trying to look at this pick, I'm like, who's a big freak athlete out there? And I didn't really see one. So obviously a lot of those guys tend to be linebackers. They don't need a linebacker anymore. And so I thought, when I'm looking at the Cardinals, one of their biggest weaknesses this past year has been cornerback. And at cornerback, they've had some injuries. Marco Wilson's been hurt. And they've had to go more zone defense. And they had to even pick up a street free agent and play him late in the season. And so cornerback is an area of need. And there's a couple cornerbacks that are available here that I think are great value picks at this spot. And Kyrie Elam is one possibility. But I think Roger McCreary fits more with what they want to do. They want more of a true cover corner. And I think McCreary's a guy that's explosive, very fluid, doesn't really want to hit or tackle much, but covering and playing the ball in the air, I think McCreary is a guy that really fits with what the Cardinals would want out of that position. All right, pick 25, Cincinnati Bengals. Another a pretty good story between them. And I think the thing that we think about with the Bengals last year in the draft is they had a choice to make between Penei Sewell and Jamar Chase. And a lot of people, myself included, said they had to go with Penei Sewell. Protect Joe Burrow. Protect him. He got hurt. Their offensive line wasn't very good. They needed to protect Joe Burrow. And they went and they took Jamar Chase. And that proved to be the great pick. The right decision. And Penei Sewell's been good too. So that makes you think now, because they didn't go out and get a tackle. The need that they had was really right tackle and inside. And they took Jackson Carman on day 2 to play guard. But tackle's still, especially right tackle's an area of need. So, sitting right here, I think a guy that would be a good fit for them is Trevor Penning from Northern Iowa. And Northern Iowa produced a top 50 pick last year, in Spencer Brown, who's been playing for the Buffalo Bills and playing well. And a lot of people might have turned on to Northern Iowa looking to watch Spencer Brown last year. And they ended up watching Trevor Penning because they both looked very similar and thought, wow, this guy's really good. No, Spencer Brown was still pretty good. But Trevor Penning's a guy that come in, I think, play right tackle for the Bengals, give Burrow a guy opposite of him and Jonah Williams at left tackle, and you have Penning on your right side, and just continue to protect. Joe Burrow was still taking a lot of hits. He can get the ball out quick, but he needs to be protected a little bit more, and that's why I think Penning is a good fit. All right, pick 26, Buffalo Bills. They've had a quiet, I feel like last year Josh Allen was playing out of his mind, and maybe they got more attention. They've had just as good of a year this year, but they seem to be a little bit more quiet. The team hasn't been as talented, results-wise, and I think a big reason for that is they're so one-dimensional. The running game is not where it needs to be. And they're always going to pass the ball. They're always going to run Josh Allen, but they could utilize the rushing attack a little bit more. And I think one of the ways that I think they could do that is just get a foundation back. And I'm not a big fan of taking running backs in the first round, but I think it is a necessity. And the best running back in this class, a guy that I think will fit their offense, is Breece Hall out of Iowa State. Once again, I don't like taking running backs in the first round, but I think in this situation, in this draft class, and where they're at with the players that are available, I think Breece Hall is a great pick for them. All right. Detroit Lions, second first-round pick. This is the Rams pick that they got from Matt Stafford. And here, we got to think of the Lions. When we've seen out of the Lions lately, especially this regime, is they will go best player available at the start, but then they tend to reach for a need. And they did that last year with Levi Onwuzurike from Washington at defensive tackle, who maybe wasn't the right pick, the best value there, but they took him because they needed that position. And I think they do that with here. They took Thibodeau at the beginning, best player available. Here, I think, once again, they reach. And they reach for a need, and a big need is receiver. And I think they go out and get Drake London. Drake London, I think, if he didn't break his ankle, would probably be the number one receiver taken in this class. But because there's some uncertainty with that ankle, because of that, it wasn't a huge speed guy, more of a contested catch. The Lions need a receiver. They got Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's played really well as a rookie. Why not go get his teammate, Drake London? Here's a Lions team that doesn't expect to contend again next year. They know that. They know that they need to get a quarterback. There wasn't a quarterback available. They're not taking Kenny Pickett number 2 overall. They're going to ride it out with Jared Goff again, but get some of the young talent in there so when they can come and get a quarterback, maybe it's in next year's draft, and they go out and get a C.J. Stroud or a Bryce Young or DJ Uiagalelei, that they have the pieces in place. And I think Drake London, getting him at receiver, I think is a good, if he can come back from an ankle injury, which all indications are, I think he'd come in and be very good. Dallas Cowboys, pick 28. I am taking Jaquan Brisker right here, a safety out of Penn State. Defensively, they've got a lot of good pieces. They've got Trayvon Diggs at corner, who's been making plays, making interceptions. They've got Micah Parsons, Randy Gregory, those guys off the edge, Dexter Lawrence as well. So they've got those weapons. They've got a lot of pieces. Okay, what about the back end where they've had to kind of fill in? They signed Malik Hooker, who was once considered to be one of the next great safeties coming out of college. Get a guy that can work over the top, like Jaquan Brisker can. He can play the post safety. He can sit back in deep center field coverage, react to the ball. He can match up in the slot, and it gives this defense yet another weapon. This mock draft, let's go with the Kansas City Chiefs, and I think we've seen with them, they want to go out and they want to get weapons. We saw it a couple years ago with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I think they make a similar type move, and they see Jameson Williams sitting here. Yes, he's got the ACL injury. I don't think he's slipping out of the first round. If he's available for the Chiefs, they love that type of receiver, elite speed, route runner type guy. They've got Tyreek Hill. They've got Mecole Hardman. They've got some other guys, but I think Jameson Williams would fit perfectly with what they want to do. He's available. Yes, he has an ACL injury, but I don't think that's going to prevent him from dropping out. And they're a team that, once again, doesn't have a ton of weaknesses, so they can go luxury with this pick. Pick 30, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I have them taking Ka'ir Elam. Cornerback, Carlton Davis is going to be a free agent. Cornerback is kind of a need for them. Elam's a guy that I think could very well go earlier. And so, so the value's there. Physical, big corner. I think he'd fit well with what Todd Bowles and this defense really wants to go with. All right, pick 31. I'm going with Devin Lloyd out of Utah. Another player that I wanted to go much higher. I think he could very well go to the Steelers. He fits really with what they want to do there. Obviously, I went in a different direction. But I think Devin Lloyd is a guy that would fit really well with what the Titans want to do. I think he'd fit that very variable defense very well. He's a versatile guy. I know he's a linebacker, a stacked linebacker, but Utah played him on the edge a lot as well as a pass rusher. So I think that versatility, I think he'd be looked at as an inside guy next to Rashaan Evans. But I think he gives them that versatility that he could potentially get on the outside as well and be a pass rusher, be a blitzer as well too. So I think he fits with what they want. And finally, we have the Green Bay Packers. They can go a lot of different directions here. But one of the things that I think that's out there that maybe is what are they going to do at receiver with Devontae Adams, who's going to be a free agent. I don't know if they can re-sign him and have Aaron Rodgers still on that team. They've got a lot of cap decisions to make. And with that being said, I think Devontae Adams ends up going elsewhere. And that means that the Packers need a new number one receiver. And a guy that is actually my favorite receiver in this class is Chris Olave. And so I mocked him right here. And that puts him as my 32nd pick. I think his route running ability would really fit well with what the Packers want to do on their offense. And that's my first round. And there's some guys that maybe I didn't have. I mean, this is just, a mock in the middle of January. But here's a look at it real quick. Hey, Hutchinson, Thibodeau, Stingley, Neal, and Ekwonu are my top 5. Pass rushers and linemen dominate this top 10. I mean, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 edge rushers. We have 2 offensive tackles going in the top 10. So it's a line type of draft, and only 1 quarterback in that top 10. So hope you enjoyed this mock draft. Once again, I'm not paid by NFL Mock Draft Database. They do a great job over there. I did tell them that I was going to be using his simulator for this video. So give them a quick look. I think it's the best one out there. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Make sure you follow me on all social media, draft_Brian, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook. Make sure that you hit me up there. Make sure you go to the Huddle Report for my written mock draft as well. And make sure you follow me here on YouTube for all my videos, including a lot of player scouting report videos. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. And until next time.